It's a most unusual event that I'm present at. 100 years in the life of any institution is obviously something to be greatly celebrated. You know, when the Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar attained to a certain age, the great poet Mirza Ghalib wrote a little paean of praise in his honor. And it went like this: Tum salamat raho hazar baras. Tum salamat raho hazar baras. Par har baras ke din ho 50,000. It's a little excessive, but this is what my wish for this particular museum is. May it live for 1,000 years, and may each year consist of 50,000 days. I will not go into what I owe to this museum, what this museum owes to the gentleman who's sitting right next to me here. But it's an enormous pleasure personally for me. Each time that I have come to Bombay, I have made this a point to be in this museum, learn from it, and keep admiring it incrementally what is happening here. But to get back to the subject on which I'm likely to speak, not going to, but likely to speak. The things we do not see. You know, but I should caution you. When I used to go from one university to the other to teach years ago, a rumor went around the new university: be prepared to hear the same stories, see the same pictures, hear the same poetry. But I can assure you, nobody fell sick, nobody fainted, so I hope that that is going to be the case here too. You will see the images that I am going to project here and recognize them. The point is, what do I see in them, and what I am inviting you to see for yourselves. Currently, one of the issues being debated, in fact, talked about a great deal, is called the issue of visual illiteracy. Are we illiterate visually? There is a contradiction in terms here because the word literacy relates to letters. And so there is no such thing as a visual illiteracy, but we transfer this. Incidentally, am I audible? Yeah, okay, thank you. The whole question is, what do we see? When we are confronted with a work of art, when we encounter a work of art, what is it that comes and goes through our minds? What context, what aesthetics, what memories rise in our mind? The contextual, the aesthetic are singularly important as far as viewing any work of art. And most often, what happens is that it is a kind of a surface contact that we make, a gloved contact with a work of art, which the result is that I used to talk to the students at the CCRT long years ago, and I would ask them, they would be there for a month, and I would ask them a simple question. Were you in the National Museum? Yes, we were. And did you see the painting gallery? Yes, we did. How much time did you spend in the painting gallery? 20 minutes. Out of the 20 minutes, you talk to each other for 5. That leaves you 15 minutes to look at 120 paintings. Let's break it down. And it comes down to 6 seconds per painting. that these young students would have looked at. What can you get out of this? What possibly can you get out of a contact of the eyes and the mind? That is the most important thing with a work of art. So we have to do something about this. I mean, I do not mind if out of 120 paintings that are in the gallery, the students or anybody else spends just all the time, 20 minutes or 10 minutes, looking at one work of art. That I think is preferable to me personally than spending just like a berry through a bird. I mean, the experience of looking at works of art goes through us undigested. So one has to do something, one has to think about it. And what I'm going to do now at this moment, the few minutes that I have to myself, is to take you through my own inability, my own inadequacy to begin with, when confronted with works of art, and then switch on to a few things which I think I see something in. What you have in front of you at this moment is an exceedingly puzzling object. It's a piece of calligraphy that you can see, and if you know the Arabic or the Persian script, you can recognize some letters. There is a Re here, there is a Dal here, there is a Jim there, and so on. But what is it? This is a work by a contemporary Syrian calligrapher, and it leaves me completely puzzled. I can't make head or tail of it, but I'm drawn to it all the time. I think it's an extraordinary work of not only craftsmanship, but something must have gone through the head of the calligrapher who conceived and achieved this work. So what is it that we are confronted with when we look at works of art? I can't make head or tail of this either. It is probably from a Jain manuscript, probably from Sangrahani Sutra or something like that and so on, but I do not understand what it is. There are these linga-like figure shapes at the top, and they continue into squares at the bottom. I'm drawn to it, and the colors are just absolutely, totally seductive. But I can't make sense of this. What is it that the painter, the thinker, not the painter, was rendering? Perhaps Dr. Saryu Doshi will be able to tell us a bit more about it. But I don't know. I really do not. What do I make of this? It's a puzzle. We can see that it is a part of a rich building, of a palace perhaps, because of the decoration or the architectural detail that we see in here. We see 3 lamps, standing lamps, in each of which there are 3 wicks which are on fire. But what is it? What exactly is the painter saying? I get some help, a little bit of help, from the inscription at the very top, which says Deep 37. Now, deep is deep, a lamp. Of course it is a lamp. There are 3 lamps in fact. But the number 37 tells me it belongs to a series, right? Probably Swapna Darshan, probably a book of, prognostication and so on and so forth. I don't know. I am not certain at all. So the puzzlement, so to speak, continues. What do we have here? This is a Pahadi painting, and a Pahadi is an area which I know something about. What are these 9 squares at the bottom right? There are 9 figures. 3 at the top, they're listening to somebody recite something from a manuscript. 4 in the middle register, and 2 in the bottom register towards the left. What is it? There's no text at the back. There's nothing whatsoever. So you and I are left to our devices to make sense of it. Remember the number 9, the sacred number, mysterious number, in a certain sense, a number that cannot be destroyed. We all know that. Then there are 9 types of worship, bhakti, Navada Bhakti, and so on and so forth. Is that being hinted at by the person who is reciting something from that particular corner of at the very top? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what this particular image contains or says or tells or challenges us to make sense of. It's not a question of my illiteracy alone. Everyone's illiteracy. This painting was published several times, and nobody, not one person till now, and many art historians have engaged with it, but given up. We can see that it is some sacred thing. There are these 4 ovoid areas, and there is a priest at the extreme right with a sacred sprig of leaves in his hand. But what is it? What really is it? This is how we begin. You can see that there is some area of water. Some letters are written, and somewhere in that the word Ganga occurs. But what? Then this is not Ganga. This is not a river at all. These are areas which we don't know much about. In fact, anything about at all. But the processes of mind in the maker of this particular image must have been absolutely clear. I don't think it is a hit or miss thing. There is thought behind this. So what is it? You and I are not privy to this. You and I can keep struggling, try and make sense, make speculations and so on and so forth. But I have so far given up. This is the great architect Le Corbusier, who built Chandigarh for us. He built a great big door to the legislative chamber. And when it was being inaugurated, then the chief minister at that time was present, and the MLAs and the members of the legislative assembly were all there because they are all paid for it, so to speak. And they asked the chief commissioner, can you please address the architect Corbusier to tell us what it is? And Corbusier turned around and said, please ask a question on my behalf of this audience. Do you know everything about everything? And obviously the answer is no. He said, then please ask them to add this to the list of things they don't know anything about. So this is what it is. So I have added this to the list of things that I don't know anything about at all. Is there frustration in this? Is there a sense of inadequacy on our part? Are we really visually illiterate? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Fortunately, this is not always the case. This extraordinary sculpture, only this size, a bronze, which has been published by Stella Kramrishi long years ago, and she gave it the title, The Tree of Life and Knowledge. Decent, fair. It is a sacred tree, as you can see. It's not a tree that you and I can see in real life. Stylized, brilliantly done. Absolutely brilliantly done. But what is it? I think one can grope around the idea of what this tree might be representing. Just groping. As you see it, the trunk of the tree, there are two figures, monkey-like, but crowned monkeys. The moment you see a crowned monkey, Ramayana comes to our head. Hanuman, Angad, Sugriv. Down below at the bottom, flanking the trunk of the tree, are two cows. When we see a tree and cows, Krishna comes to mind. So we have moved away from the Ramayana and moved into the Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Puran perhaps. When you see rise up in the heart of the tree, the crown of the tree, there is a chakra. So there is some kind of a Vaishnava association with it. Above the chakra there is a many-hooded serpent. So once again Sheshanag, Vasuki, etc. come to our mind. But where are we going? I mean, what is it? I would like to be helped on this, but my mind begins to walk through these very beautifully organized branches, leaves which connect one branch with the other, and so brilliantly done as a sculpture. But then I come to this. At the edge of each branch there is a bird, and it is a Hansa bird. The Hans as we know it, I mean, in our mythology. So is that telling us something? The Hansa bird, right, is associated with what? Nir Kshir Viveka. Right? The intelligence, the wisdom, the sense of discrimination to distinguish water from milk. The story always is, if you place before a Hans a vessel full of milk mixed with water, the Hans has the wisdom to drink only milk, leave water behind. Is that what it is? And when Stella Kramrisch called it the tree of life and knowledge, perhaps these thoughts floated through her mind. Perhaps somewhere some memories were in a certain sense roused. Perhaps some text which she could not identify immediately at that time presented itself on the slate of her mind. Is the Hans in a yogic practice? Two letters, Hang, Sa. Ingoing breath, outgoing breath. Like that. Is that what is hinted at? We don't know. I do not know. And if anyone here knows, then I would be most grateful for any help that I can receive on this. But I cannot get over the beauty of this particular object. And as I said, about many of the objects that we have been looking at, I'm drawn to it. I accept the challenge. I like the challenge. I really would like to really get into the mind of the man, 15th century, who made this. So there are things we see and things we do not see, or we are incapable of seeing. This extraordinary painting Shiva and Parvati from a Rasamanjari series is the opening leaf of a series. It is a prayer to Shiva. And what does the prayer say? You, because his consort Parvati is merged in him, you always save her the effort. When you have to pluck a flower, it is you who extend your right hand. When you lie down together, then it is you who wear the weight on the right side, and so on and so forth. I think the painter has not fully understood the verse on which this particular painting is based. The writer had the Ardhanarishwar figure in his mind, half man, half woman. Now he has not merged the two identities, separated them, but leaves an area of ambiguity. Look at the figure at the extreme left here. Which is the right leg and which is the left? If you look at the feet and the way the toes are organized, you get very confused. Very, very confused. Is that the right hand or the left hand with which is going to pluck a flower? We have to puzzle it out. And when the two of them, the divine couple, sort of lies on the Bagambara out here, once again, this ambiguity, this uncertainty persists. But at least we are getting a little close to understanding what a work of art might be representing. Not representing, interpreting. Not interpreting, but opening a window through which we are invited to enter. Now this is the glory of looking, of the exercise of looking. When I saw this particular painting, it's a tiny little painting from Kashmir, very poorly drawn, as you can see. The drawing is most ordinary. But Shiva and Parvati seated in the midst of the cosmic lotus. Shiva is a Gangadhara. Shiva is the one who bears the Ganga in his locks when it descends. And now look at that. From the top of the crown of Shiva, a very thin stream is emerging, and that takes a curve, descends, as you can see it very clearly here. As I said, I'm not apologizing, I didn't make this particular drawing, it's a poorly drawn thing, but the mind of the artist who made this is absolutely luminous, because what he has done is the same stream comes down and becomes the stalk of the lotus on which the Lord sits. I've never seen a thing like this. You know, it is the circular thing, beginning and end and beginning and end and so on. When we saw it for the first time, I don't think our eyes even took in the fact that this thin green stream of water is positioned like this. I'm grown exceedingly fond of this image, and I admire the mind of the person who made it. I did not see it. These are the things we do not see. It's a folio from a manuscript of the Ramayana from Mysore that incidentally currently I am working on. The text is in Kannada, which I don't read a word of, but that doesn't stop me from proceeding because it is the text. The text is from the Valmiki Ramayana, of which a version was produced in Mysore by 17th century. It is from the Lanka Kand of the Ramayana. Strange things happen on the battlefield. The extraordinary description of the battle between Ram and Ravan and so on, the demons and the good people and so on. And one occasion, somebody mentions to Hanuman that there is danger to the life of Ram and Lakshmana. And one has to be careful. So, Hanuman is capable of extending his tail endlessly. So with his tail, what you see around is a fortification, that he has built. There is kind of a circle, and he's seated right at the bottom of the picture as you can see it. And inside, in that area which he has created, safe area so to speak, Ram and Lakshman, who have been battling the whole day long, weeks along and so on and so forth, they are resting on this. And the attendants, the juniors, the helpers, whether it is the bear king or it is the Vanaras and so on, sit surrounding. But what we have not noticed at the same time is that figure at the top right, which is about to break through the fortification. Who that figure is? Your guess is as good as mine. But we imagine that it is the figure of Ahiravana, who was the brother of Ravana, who was a magician. And it was he who, under a guise of being Vibhishan, that is one of the brothers of Ravana, enters slyly into that. And then he plays his magic. And Ram and Lakshman are gone, disappeared. An amazing composition. And Vibhishan then comes and asks Hanuman, where are Ram and Lakshmana? And he said, but they were here a moment ago. What is it that we are asking of ourselves? To have the context of an image or a series of images at our disposal. We have to summon our memories. We have to summon to our presence the fact that I read this or I saw this and so on, I heard this. All of these things, all powers have to be concentrated in our minds. That the moment of watching, seeing carefully what is going on. Memories have to be tapped. Contexts which were present in our minds, subliminally perhaps, have in a certain sense to be understood, decoded, like that. This is one of the largest paintings that we have from the state of Patiala in the Punjab. It is referred to, there was a Maharaja by the name of Narinder Singh, the patron of the arts, and it is published as, spoken of as the procession of Maharaja Narinder Singh. Fair enough as a description. But let's look at it with some care. The Maharaja is seated atop an elephant, in all his glory. There is a person behind him with a moorchal in his hand. Moorchal, there are two kinds of fly whisks. There is the yak-tail fly whisk, which is called a chamar, and there is made of the feathers of a peacock, a moorchal. Now the Maharaja is seated there in that golden howdah. Behind him there is a servitor, who has a moorchal, but in front of the Maharaja, on the back of the neck of the elephant, the Mahavat as he is called, he has in his hand a yak-tail fly whisk. That is a chamar. The chamar, only two kinds of people are entitled to a chamar. Either the deities, gods, or sovereigns. But let's look at it in some detail, because it's a wonderful painting. Now you see it from a little close. There is a slightly different exposure. That is the Maharaja, behind him a servant or a retainer, and in front of him another person. And you completely are lost in the manner in which the painter has created an image of untold luxury. These elephants, one after the other, like monsoon clouds gathering in the skies. And there are retainers, horsemen, like this. There's something like 120 figures in this particular painting. But what am I leading you or myself towards is, well ahead of the Maharaja's procession or savari on the elephant back is another elephant. And on the back of that elephant, in a howdah, there is the sacred book of the Sikhs, the Guru Granth Sahib. So it is a procession of the Guru Granth Sahib and not of the Maharaja that we are looking at. The Maharaja is a follower. He is a servant of the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book. And it is not a celebration of him, but of the fact that the Guru Granth Sahib, which is well ahead of that, when our eyes were riveted on the right hand, on the major part of the painting, but that towards the extreme left, on the back of the elephant, is the sacred book. It is the procession of the holy book, not of the Maharaja. So we were in error, and to begin with. We misunderstood, did not even look well enough, closely enough at what this particular painting contains. So when we talk about visual illiteracy, when we talk about context, whether it is aesthetic or historical or memory-laden and so on and so forth, then this is the kind of thing that you and I, have to be aware of. This you will see tomorrow from the Jodhpur exhibition. The extraordinary work of art, a great big manuscript. And what do we see? This is a blank kind of a thing that you and I are, in a certain sense, confronted with. 3 parts. The first, at the extreme left, absolutely plain. Nothing is visible in this. Nothing at all. Blank. When we move towards the right, a figure appears. A figure which is very highly regarded in the text on which this particular triptych is based. And then, but there is nothing else, no materiality in the painting at all. And when we move forward, then concrete things appear, the beginning of the universe, so to speak, like that. I have no idea whether this interests you or not, but at this moment I do not even care. Forgive me for this. Because this is the point I am making to myself as much as to you. The need, the desperate need, the urgent need to ask questions of works of art, to summon to our aid memories and contexts and texts and so on and so forth, to make sense. It's an exercise. This extraordinary painting, which I have probably published to death, I do not know, so many times, by the great Manaku, Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha, golden egg, golden germ. In all cultures, as we all know, there have been speculations. How did it all begin? Right? And in one effort at understanding or speculating, says one Hiranyagarbha, this golden egg descended. But in the Rig Veda itself, the oldest document in India, the oldest text that we have in India, we have a sutra, a stuti of Hiranyagarbha, the greatest of the great, the breath of the gods. That is the golden egg which descended. And why is it golden? Because the sun was hiding inside it. And then, after eons of time had passed, some crack appeared in that, and out sprang life. This egg lay on the waters of eternity for eons of time, incalculable time. And the waters of eternity, the cosmic ocean, is rendered by the painter in this very extraordinary fashion. These roughly concentric circles, these are not eddies, but balls, so to speak. Is this the only way in which Manaku the painter knew how to paint water? I don't think so. Manaku could do anything with water. I'll show you. This is also by Manaku, the same painter. Now the waters here are still more or less, and the golden lotus appears from that, and so the cosmic lotus, Brahma, the great Sarva creator, sits there with the Sarva sacred book in one hand, the Gomukh glove in the other, and a golden pitcher in the other, and so on. So the waters are different, as you can see. That design, I'm not talking about design, a surface design, as a designer would think of a design. But that those patterns that we saw in the earlier painting, etc., are nowhere near here. This is again by Manaku, a detail that I have taken. This is the river Yamuna, and there's a foamy edge of the waters that we see here. But when we come to the Hiranyagarbha, and this I remind you and remind myself, is how he renders water. Why? What could have gone through his mind? Why did he choose this kind of a pattern? My guess is, I have nothing to go on, but my guess is, what he's creating here is a measure of time. When you want to know what the age of a tree is, you cut the trunk and you get these lines, concentric, like this. This is what might have been going through. This is timelessness in a certain manner of speaking, which is capturing. This is the measure of endless time. So there's an intellectual exercise going here, and brilliant, absolutely dazzling design that Manaku has created. Sorry. It's hard for you and me to take our eyes off it. Which wise? There are thousands of them are made, produced. And in the Varsha Ritu, this is one of the great pitchwise. In this particular way of rendering that particular season, Krishna does not appear. He is absent. And it's the iconography of this kind of pitchwai is, there is a central tree, there are 3 gopis on this side, 3 on the other side, and the whole thing is absolutely blossoming with gold. The gods gather in their heavens to see this divine sight. Possibly Krishna will appear. Who knows? And this is the standard way of rendering these pitchwais of this particular season of the year. Again, you can see that. The central tree, 3 gopis on this side, 3 on the other. Enchantment, sheer enchantment. But if you will notice, around the tree, behind the tree, there are little flowers falling from that tree or other trees. The background is not blank, but there are these exquisite, probably very fragrant flowers which fall. It may not happen in every single pitchwai of the same kind, but here is what is called the Char Gopiyon ka Parda in the Calico Museum of Textiles in Ahmedabad. And once again, it's the same kind of a tree that we see here. Painting after painting in the pitchwais, you see, once again, background is black, against which these golden flowers are falling. And the cows, of course, inevitably are always there, because the expectation of Krishna being there is. This pitchwai seems to fall into the same pattern. And I'll share with you the moment of illumination that I once felt. I was taking a group of friends through that particular museum, looking at one pitchwai after another, and I saw this. I had seen this 20 times at least before. But that particular day, that particular moment, something else happened. You can get lost in the beauty of the detail, this or these wonderfully drawn cows looking up, necks craned, waiting for Krishna. And then I saw this, which has appeared on the cover of the invitation card, which this museum, with great imagination, used. Now you see this differently. There are in the background, this is a dark background, black, 2 gopis on either side of that trunk of the tree. And the flowers which are there are only limited to that space around the trunk. And if you have the eyes to see or the mind to explore, you will see that these flowers are falling in a pattern. And if you are inclined to join the ends of these flowers with a pencil, you can do that in children's books and so on and so forth, you see Krishna. Start from the bottom. One foot on the ground, the other slightly lifted. And the figure of Krishna slowly builds up and left absolutely wonderstruck. What must have gone through the mind of the painter who created this? Was he doing it for the year 2022 on the 2nd of September 2022 for us here in Bombay? Or was he doing it for himself? Was he challenging other painters to discover what I have done? Can you decode what I have done? Amazing. This is a moment of, as I said, I cannot forget. I have seen this 20 odd times, this particular picture. I had never noticed. And in that moment, it all became very clear. Things I did not see, I suddenly saw. Krishna playing upon his flute, based on the Satsai of Vihari, early 17th century great poet. And this is the opening folio of a series. On top, there is the words of Bihari. Adhar adharat hari ke parat ot deet pat jot harit baas ki bansuri Indra dhanush si hot. The moment he puts the flute to his lips, all colors start gathering. The black of his eyes, the red of his lips, the yellow of his pita vastra, the garment that he wears, and these were colors all taken together, they look as if there is a great big rainbow which is forming in the sky. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant verse. Harita Bansaki Bansari Indra Dhanush si hot. Ot deet patajot, like that and so on. Indra Dhanush si hot. And now you and I should look at it with great care. Krishna. And now we should start registering the range of colors that the painter has chosen. Playing upon the flute. Two gopis, his admirers, lovers, standing at the right and absolutely stunned by the sounds which are emerging from Krishna's magical flute. You and I are looking at colors in the sky. You're looking at the colors of the water, the background, the blacks and the reds and the yellows that the poet had spoken of are all there. But on the left side of the painting, there are 5 other gopis who are not even paying the slightest attention to Krishna. The others are absorbed on the right side, paying no attention to it all. And one of them raises her hand and says, "Look there. That is the rainbow." But is this how a rainbow looks? A rainbow is not like a kind of parabolic thing and so on. It is not. The rainbow spreads out. It is, and the angles, etc., are very, very different. And does the painter not know what a rainbow looks like or where does it appear? He knows. Of course he does. You and I know this. But then what is it? In the tradition of Nathadwara prevailing, they speak of something called Giri Kandara, the cave in the mountain. And the notion is that that is a cave which you enter in which you will discover something or the other. Self-discovery, you can stumble, you can fall. This is the cave of experience which the painter has rendered, not the rainbow up in the sky. That's what I think. Giri Kandara, the mouth of the cave. Please do not despair, I am coming to the end of all this. A Mughal painting, a majlis, a kind of a musical soiree. Sheikh Sadi, the great poet, is seated. By his side is another person, similarly clad, with a grey beard, who has thrown up his hands like this, as if in some kind of ecstasy, has lost control of himself. Musicians are at the right. I turned this painting on its back, and there was a katha, a composition of Sheikh Sadi in Persian. And what does the katha say? It is in Persian. I'll recite it for you. I'm assuming that all of you know Persian well. Gili khushbue dar hamam rozi, rasid az daste mahboobi badastam, badu gufta ke mushki ya abiri, ke man az bue dilaviz mastam, bagufta man gili nachiz budam, walekin muddate bagul nishastam, kamale hamnashi बर मन असर करद वगरना मन हमू हाकिम के हस्तम. Sadi's composition. What does it mean? One day when I was about to enter the public bath, there were no private baths at that time, my beloved handed me a cake of clay. There were no soaps at that time. Fine clay is something with which you cleansed yourself. And I held that cake of clay in my hand, put it to my nose, and I felt besotted by the fragrance which emerged from it. And I spoke out. I addressed the cake of clay and said, "What are you? Are you amber? Are you musk, that I am completely taken with your fragrance?" And the second part is, for the kindness of its heart, the cake of clay spoke back to me and said, "I am but a humble piece of clay. But I do remember that I come from the same soil in which some roses used to grow. It is the company that I kept which has made me what I am. Otherwise, what am I? A fistful of dust." That's it. Extraordinary utterance. I mean, you can say good company is a good thing, right? But look at the way it has been woven together. Look at the way, I mean, it's extraordinary. Absolutely sends you into a... And that is why this man, who when he hears this being sung, he loses control over himself, throws up his arms into the air, and so. It would have escaped me if I had not known that there is a katha at the back. So you have to devise strategies of seeing. You have to Summon to your aid and assistance whatever you can. What are we looking at? From Assam, some painter painting the Bhagavad Puran is visualizing, envisioning, in fact, is the good word, what the Meru mountain looks like. The Meru is the spine of the universe. The description of it in the text is that it is a huge thing. There are 4 supporting mountains. There are 4 kinds of trees which grow in that particular land and so on. This in the center, this tiered thing, is according to the painter the Meru mountain. These 4 things which are 2 leaning on this side, 2 on the other, are the supporting, and the foliage are the 4 sacred trees which grow there. How do we know? If I were to ask the painter, how do you know this is Meru mountain? Have you seen it? He can ask in return, have you seen it? This is my imagination, believe it or not. That is the crux of the matter, as far as I am concerned. A Nayaka, Abhisarika, sets out in the middle of the night to meet the lover at an appointed hour. The rain is falling, these sort of strings of pearls which are falling from that. And we know that she is completely unconcerned about the rain. Her mind is made up, she has to go. A snake is still clinging to her anklet on the way because she's a Abhisarika. But then you see this. She stretches out her hand and feels, and the strings of pearls take a curve, as if it is a curtain that she is beginning to weave. Magical. Absolutely, to me, magical. The rain is not going to stop me. I can remove it. I can walk through it like that. Reading these pictures is the thing. Krishna and Radha have spent the night together. Their love is supposed to be secret. Nobody in the village is supposed to know about it. In the morning, as you can see, the flowers begin to, the lotuses begin to blossom in the background, and Radha gathers her clothes and is about to walk out when Krishna stops her. Do not go out, with my yellow garment on your body, because once you step out of this, everyone will know where you were last night. Now, if we miss the detail of the yellow garment around the body of Radha, you miss the soul of the picture. Each work of art has a body and a soul. The Atma is in that little detail. When the two of them fight and she, lets go of her temper and says, where were you last night? I waited for you. And Krishna can take it up to a point, and then he says, he gets very upset, he's about to walk away. But as you can see it, he knows that I'm not going to walk away, right? And what amazing thing is, the way the painter has done that, he leaves the entire background bare, but for that pillar of discord in the middle. And if you look at that, I mean, she is a little concerned, not a little, but very concerned. Have I overstepped my limit? And she stretches a very tentative hand. Should I call him back? Should I not? It is of these subtleties, of these extraordinary finenesses, that works of art are made. If you were to ask anyone, what do you tell us? Is this a moment after lovemaking or before lovemaking? The answer is clear. It is after lovemaking, because the garland around Krishna's neck is broken. Because the necklace that she was wearing, some beads are missing and they're lying close to their feet. So passionate lovemaking has gone on in the night. And that is what you're looking at. Finally, this is a painting I've shown you perhaps not quite 20, maybe 19 times. But when I see it, every single time I see it, comes to my mind a great poem which is of this last century. What do we see? Work by Abul Hasan, an old man, pilgrim, Sufi, whatever you call it, unable to stand on his own. You can see that his eyes are, unable to discern anything. His back is bent, his legs are shriveled. So he is in the Sunday evening of his life. That we can see. But what does it bring to my mind is the poem by Ali Sardar Jafri, which I must have recited endlessly, but I cannot resist the temptation of forcing it upon you. Ali Sardar Jafri wrote a poem called Mera Safar, My Journey. And this is how it is. It's a longish poem. I hope you do not melt waiting here in this heat, but I recite it for you. फिर एक दिन ऐसा आएगा, फिर एक दिन ऐसा आएगा, आंखों के दिए बुझ जाएंगे, हाथों के कमल कुमलाएंगे, और बरगे जुबां से नुत्क़ो सदा की हर तितली उड़ जाएगी. A day will come when the lamps of your eyes will grow dim, when the lotuses of your hands will begin to wilt, and from the little branch which is your tongue, all butterflies of articulation and sound will fly away one by one by one. Approaching death. फिर एक दिन ऐसा आएगा, आंखों के दिए बुझ जाएंगे, हाथों के कमल कुमलाएंगे, और बरगे जुबान से नुत्क़ो सदा की हर तितली उड़ जाएगी. एक काले समंदर की तह में फूलों की तरह से हंसती हुई, कलियों की तरह से खिलती हुई सारी शक्लें खो जाएंगी. All faces that I know will disappear in the dark eddies of an ocean. ये धरती, ये मेरी धरती, मेरी ज़मीं, हंसती हुई ये हीरे की कनी, इसकी सुबहें, इसकी शामें एक मुश्त गुबारे इंसान पर शबनम की तरह रो जाएंगी. This earth that I walk on, and these sunsets that I see, and this jewel-like thing which is the earth, all will disappear. दिल की धड़कन, खून की गर्दिश, सब रागिनियां सो जाएंगी. All the melodies that I hear. And what are the melodies that I hear? The coursing of blood through my veins. The beating of my heart. All these will fall silent. फिर कोई नहीं ये पूछेगा. Sardar kahan hai Mehfil? Nobody is going to turn around and say, where did this man go? Sardar, about himself. And then he turns around and say, in the second part of the poem, Lekin main yahan phir aunga. But I will be back here again. लेकिन मैं यहाँ फिर आऊँगा, बच्चों के दहन से बोलूँगा, चिड़ियों की जुबान में गाऊँगा, और जब बीज उगेंगे धरती में और कोंपलें अपनी उंगली से मट्टी की तहों को छेड़ेंगी, मैं पत्ती पत्ती कली कली फिर अपनी आंखें खोलूँगा. I'll be back here again and I'll speak through the lisping tongue of the newborn. I will, like the twittering of the birds and so on. And when little shoots begin to tease the surface of the soil and emerge, I will be there to see that. And I shall take dewdrops on my palm and try and see what their weight is. Right? लेकिन मैं यहाँ फिर आऊँगा, बच्चों के दहन से बोलूँगा, चिड़ियों की जुबान में गाऊँगा, जब बीज उगेंगे धरती में और कोंपलें अपनी उंगली से मट्टी की तहों को छेड़ेंगी, मैं पत्ती पत्ती कली कली फिर अपनी आंखें खोलूँगा और सरसब्ज़ हथेली पर लेकर शबनम के कतरे तोलूँगा. मैं रंगे हिना आहंगे गज़ल अंदाज़ सखुन बन जाऊँगा और रुखसारे उरू से नौ की तरह हर आंचल से छन जाऊँगा. I'll turn into the sound of the ghazal. I'll turn into the blush of the cheek on the cheek of the newlywed bride. Like that. This is what I will become. और जाड़ों की हवाएं दामन में जब फसले खिज़ां को लाएंगी, रहरों के जवां कदमों के तले सूखे हुए पत्तों से मेरे चलने की सजा है. When winter comes and leaves fall and they are dry and there's a crunching sound of feet on them, whose sound would that be? Those feet will be mine. आकाश की नीली सब झीलें, धरती की सुनहरी सब नदियां हस्ती से मेरी भर जाएंगी. All the blue lakes that are in the sky, all the golden rivers that flow on this particular land will be filled with my presence. तब सारा ज़माना देखेगा, हर किस्सा मेरा अफसाना है, हर आशिक है सरदार यहाँ, हर माशूक का सुल्ताना है. Then the whole world will see at that time. All stories which are being told are my stories. All lovers bear my name. All beloveds bear the name of my wife. And the last bit, extraordinary. What am I? What am I? मैं एक गुरेज़ा लम्हा हूँ. मैं एक गुरेज़ा लम्हा हूँ अय्याम के अफसूं खाने में. I'm a fugitive moment in the wonder house of time. मैं एक लरसता कतरा हूँ मसरूफ़ सफ़र जो रहता है माजी की सुराही के दिल से मुस्तक़बल के पैमाने में. I am that drop that trembles at the lip of the carafe of the past about to be poured into the goblet of the future. I tremble there. मैं एक लरसता कतरा हूँ which is constantly traveling, मसरूफ़ सफ़र जो रहता है माजी की सुराही के दिल से मुस्तक़बल के पैमानों में. मैं सोता हूँ और जागता हूँ और जाग के फिर सो जाता हूँ. I go to sleep, I wake up, slow to sleep again. सदियों का पुराना खेल हूँ मैं मर के अमर हो जाता हूँ. I do not die. I do not. My journey. Why do I think of this poem? Because of this. When we saw the painting for the first time, the whole painting, we did not even pay the slightest attention to that little plant at close to the feet of the old man. But is that the promise of return? is that the hope of return. Everything is blank. The greenish black in the distance, in the background. I mean, nothing else exists apart from this man and that tiny little flower blossoming close to his feet. There are things I do not see, but this I have seen. May I thank you very much.